Hello everyone. Once again, welcome to Top 100 Most Asked Network Engineer Interview Question and Answer Series. Guys, till now we had discussed 45 important questions. And today we are going to discuss 5 more important questions for network engineer interview. So without wasting our time, let's begin. So first question for the day is, what is VTP? What is VTP? Understand, VTP is important question for network engineer interview. Many times interviewer is asking this question, right? So you have to keep in mind how to answer if interviewer will ask you to explain VTP, or if interviewer will ask you what is VTP. So guys, VTP stands for VLAN trunking protocol. VTP stands for VLAN trunking protocol, which is used to propagate the information of VLAN database, right? VTP stands for VLAN trunking protocol, which is used to propagate VLAN information, or you can say which is used to propagate the information of VLAN database, or to centralize VLAN management, right? To create, delete or edit. To create, delete and edit. Understand which one? Example, suppose in my network there is some switches. Suppose there is 4 switches. How many switches are there? 4. Okay, these 4 switches are connected together. So suppose I need to create 5 VLAN on each switch. 5 VLAN only, right? So there is no problem. We can manually create 5 VLAN on every switch, right? But guys, suppose we have 100 switches in my network, right? Suppose we have 100 switches in my network, or 1000 switches in my network, and we need to create 5 VLAN on each switch. So task is very lengthy now, right? So when you have more number of switches in your network, then it's very difficult to configure all VLAN on every switch, right? So in that time we use VTP protocol to propagate VLAN information, right? Suppose if I will create VLAN 10 on this switch, right? So this switch will propagate VLAN 10 information to this switch, and after that this switch will relay that update with this switch as well, right? So automatically VLAN 10 will created on all the switches in your network, right? Automatically, or you can say VTP is used to create VLAN automatically on switch, right? So if you are configuring VLAN 10 on one switch, then VTP will propagate that VLAN database with their neighboring switch, and neighboring switch will update their VLAN database. After that, neighboring switch will relay that update with their neighbor. Okay, so this is VTP. After that, you can mention this point as well. It is a Cisco proprietary protocol, right? So VTP, you can configure VTP on only Cisco switches, right? On only Cisco devices. So VTP is a Cisco proprietary protocol, or you can say it is a layer 2 protocol as well. It is a layer 2 protocol, and by default VTP is enabled on all Cisco switches. So by default VTP is enabled on all switches. Interviewer can ask you different types of questions from VTP as well, right? Let me move on next question first. Next question. So this is what is VTP, or explain VTP, right? So if interviewer will ask you to explain VTP, you need to mention these 4 points. VTP stands for VLAN trunking protocol, which is used to propagate VLAN information with neighboring switch, or you can say VTP is a Cisco proprietary protocol. It is a layer 2 protocol, and by default VTP is enabled on all Cisco switches. Now let me move on next question. Question number 47. This is question number 47, I think. Yes, this is question number 47. Okay, question number 47. What are the modes of VTP? So guys, your interviewer can ask you this question as well, right? So this is very, very important question. Many times interviewer is asking modes of VTP. Okay, so always keep in mind there are 3 modes of VTP. First one is server mode, second one is client mode, and third one is transparent mode, right? First one is server, second one is client, and third one is transparent. Guys, server mode is default mode, right? So as I told you, tell you that VTP is enabled on all switches. By default, VTP is enabled on all Cisco switches. So by default, VTP mode is VTP server mode, right? This is a default mode. Now in this mode, you can create VLAN on the switch. In server mode, we can create VLAN, we can modify VLAN, and we can delete VLAN. Okay, it can send and forward VTP advertisement. Suppose we have some switches in my network, switch 1, switch 2, switch 3, and by default VTP mode is server mode and server mode. Okay, so you can create VLAN over here, right? So if I will create VLAN 10, right? If I will create VLAN 10, so this switch will share one update with switch number 2 with VLAN 10 information, and after that this switch will update their self, right? This switch will update their VLAN database. After that, relay that update with switch number 3, and then switch number 3 will also switch number 3 will also update their VLAN database. Fine. If I will create VLAN 20 over here, right, then this switch will send VLAN advertisement, and this switch number 1 will update their VLAN database. Fine. So in server mode, you can send or forward VTP advertisement, right? So send and forward means a device, a switch can, if a switch is configured as server mode of VTP, then switch can generate their VTP advertisement and they will send with their neighbor switch, and they will forward VTP advertisement as well. In the same like if I will create VLAN 10 on switch number 1, then switch number 1 will send VTP advertisement with switch number 2, and switch number 2 will forward that advertisement with switch number 3, right? When I will create VLAN 20 on switch number 2, then switch will send VTP advertisement with switch number 1 and with switch number 3. So suppose here is one more switch, that is switch number 4, then switch number 1 will forward that VTP advertisement with switch number 4. So server mode can send as well as forward VTP advertisement, right? It gets synchronized with VTP configuration, right? Whenever you will configure any VLAN on switch, right, it will synchronize VTP configuration as well. Actually they will use one CR number, right? We will discuss it later in theory. I had discussed with you. I think so you are very clear with that thing. Okay, now last point about VTP mode is server mode is, in this mode VLAN configuration gets saved in NVRAM, right? So in this mode your VLAN database will save in NVRAM. NVRAM is your startup configuration. Fine. Now let me move on. Next question, that is question number, okay, not next question, next mode, that is client. So guys, on switch in client mode we can't create, modify or delete VLAN. In client mode you are not able to create, modify or delete VLAN. Okay, and it can forward VTP advertisement only, right? VTP client mode will never send VTP advertisement, right? Client mode can only forward VTP advertisement. Means suppose we have some switch, this is switch 1, this is switch 2, and this is switch 3, just suppose. Okay, and this is server mode, this is client mode, and again this is server mode, right? So you can create VLAN on this switch and you can create VLAN on this switch. You can't create VLAN on this switch. Then how we create VLAN on this switch on client mode? Whenever you will create VLAN on server mode, right, it will client mode switch will update their VLAN database. So if I will create VLAN 10 on switch number 1, so switch number 1 will share VLAN VTP advertisement with switch number 2. Now switch number 2 will update their VLAN database. After that switch number 2 will forward VTP advertisement with switch number 3. Fine. So switch number 2 will never send BTP advertisement because you can't create VLAN on this switch, right? Because this is a client mode switch. So if you are not able to create, delete or modify VLAN on client mode switch, then how client mode switch will generate BTP advertisement, BTP message, right? So always keep in mind this point. We can't create, modify or delete VLAN in client mode. After that it will forward BTP advertisement only, right? Client mode switch will never send BTP advertisement, right? Now it gets synchronized with VLAN configuration, right? So if you will configure VLAN 10 on server mode, then definitely client mode will synchronize that VLAN information, VLAN database. They will update their VLAN database. Fine. In this mode, VLAN configuration does not get saved in NVRAM, right? So in client mode, your VLAN configuration will not save in NVRAM. Fine. And last mode is transparent mode. On the switch in transparent mode, we can create, modify or delete local VLAN. Local VLAN means if you will create one VLAN on transparent switch, or if you will delete VLAN on transparent switch, that VLAN will not affect on server mode or on client mode, right? Because this transparent mode switch will never generate BTP, never send BTP advertisement, or you can say never generate BTP message, right? Or you can say transparent mode will never include their on VLAN database information in BTP update. So suppose we have some switch 1, switch 2 and switch 3. 1, 2, 3. Suppose this is my server mode, this is my transparent mode, right? And this is my client mode. If I will create VLAN 10 on switch number 1, so switch number 1 will generate BTP advertisement, BTP message, and this switch will send BTP advertisement with switch number 2. Now switch number 2 is transparent mode switch. So this switch is not going to update their VLAN database. This switch is going to forward this BTP advertisement with switch number 3 only, right? So switch number 2 will not create VLAN 10 on this switch, on transparent switch. After that, client mode switch will update their VLAN database. So VLAN 10 will created on this switch as well. Fine. So transparent mode will never update their VLAN database with BTP advertisement, right? You can say transparent mode switch will work as a relay agent, right? Actually, this switch is receiving BTP advertisement and forwarding to their neighbor, right? Not updating their self. Fine. So it can forward BTP advertisement only. Transparent mode can never send BTP update. So now question is how to create VLAN 10 on this switch. So manually you can create VLAN 10 on this switch. Administrator can configure VLAN 10 on this switch, right? So go to switch number 2, after that VLAN 10. You can manually create VLAN 10. This switch will never update create VLAN by BTP update. BTP update by BTP update, right? So transparent mode switch will never create VLAN or delete VLAN or modified VLAN with BTP update or BTP advertisement or message. Okay, so you can see here it will not synchronize with VLAN configuration, right? It will not synchronize with VLAN configuration. In this mode of VLAN configuration gets saved in NVRAM, right? Okay, now let me move on. Next question. Question number 48, right? Question number 48. So we had discussed, I think 3 questions or 2 questions. 45, 46, 47, 48. This is your question number 3. So question number 3 is, what are the requirements for BTP message to exchange between switches, right? So requirement is very simple, guys. First requirement is the link between two switches must be configured as trunk, right? The link between two switches should be trunk, right? So suppose we have two switch, and suppose here is running server mode, VTP server mode, and again here server mode, right? So this link must be configured as trunk link, right? First requirement. Second requirement is the domain name configured on both switches should be same. So if you will configure domain name Cisco over here, then domain name must be Cisco on this switch, right? So domain name must be match. If password is configured, then password should match, right? But this is optional. You can configure or you can leave it as well. Okay. So there are two main requirements. First one is the link between two switches should be trunk link, and the domain name must match. Okay. Let me move on. Next question. Question number 49. Guys, this is also very important question. VTP pruning, right? VTP pruning. Guys, VTP pruning is a feature in Cisco switch, right? In Cisco switch only, which stop VLAN update information traffic from being sent down trunk link if the update are not needed. If the update are not needed. If the VLAN traffic is needed later, VTP will dynamically add VLAN back to the trunk port. It helps in increasing the available bandwidth by reducing unnecessary flooded traffic. So understand with one example. Again, suppose we have some switches, switch number 1, switch number 2. Okay, suppose this is VTP server mode, this is VTP server mode, right? This link is trunk link. Suppose here is one VLAN 100, and here is again VLAN 100, but there is some port in VLAN 100, right? And there is no any port in VLAN 100, right? So if there is no any port in VLAN 100, still VLAN 100 are there, but there is no any port exist in VLAN 100, then why this switch will send VTP update for VLAN 100, right? So this is VTP pruning. Okay, now let me move on. Last question of the day, that is, what is VLAN hopping? Guys, VLAN hopping is a type of attack, right? VLAN hopping is an attack where the attacker can send traffic from one VLAN to another VLAN. So let's understand with example. Suppose we have two switch number 1 and switch number 2. So this is trunk link. This is trunk link. There is suppose one server. This is my FTP server, and here is one user. Okay, suppose the IP address of FTP server is 10.1, IP address of this user is 10.2. Suppose this port is member of VLAN 100. Suppose this port is member of VLAN 100. Fine. And there will be one native VLAN as well. So native VLAN is VLAN 1 by default. Native VLAN 1. One is your native VLAN. Guys, suppose there is some unused port. There is some free port. And if an attacker will come, and if attacker will connect their computer with this port, this unused port, right? Now this port is now member of VLAN 1. This port is member of VLAN 1. Fine. Let me change the color. VLAN 1. Now suppose this attacker have some virus. If this attacker will, this is my attacker. If this attacker will transmit that virus in FTP server, then file will be corrupted. Fine. Just suppose, consider a scenario, right? But question is how attacker can send traffic in VLAN 100, because attacker is attached with VLAN 1 port, which is member of VLAN 1. Now if this attacker will came to know that FTP server is a member of VLAN 100 and IP address of FTP server is 10. So guys, there is lot of application that attacker can add a tag, right, for VLAN 100, right? So suppose this attacker will generate one traffic. What will be the source? Suppose that this attacker will configure 10.10 IP address in their computer. So source will be 10.10 and destination will be 10.1. And suppose with an application, there are a lot of applications, you can add .1q tag with your traffic. So if this attacker will add tag 100 over here, right? So now this traffic will received by switch on this interface. Now switch will check destination MAC address. So destination MAC address will be MAC address of FTP server. After that, switch will check, okay, on which port I receive this traffic. So I receive this traffic on this interface. So this interface is member of which VLAN? So this interface is member of VLAN 1. So this is VLAN 1 is your native VLAN. So I will not add tag whenever I will forward this traffic on trunk port. So this switch will not add any tag at the time of forwarding this traffic on trunk port, right? Now when this switch will receive this traffic, this switch will see, okay, tag is 100. So this switch will came to know that this is the traffic of VLAN 100 and this switch will or this traffic from this interface, right? Now attacker transmits their virus in FTP server. Suppose if I will tell to encapsulation protocol .1q that you need to perform tagging for native VLAN as well, then this attack will stop, right? Because if I will tell to .1q encapsulation protocol, suppose I am using .1q encapsulation protocol over here, right? Actually, if you are using ISL, then there is no problem, right? This attack, VLAN hopping attack, attacker can attack in your network when you are using encapsulation protocol .1q only, right? So now if this switch will perform tagging for native VLAN, then this switch will add one more tag over here, tag number 1. Now when this switch will receive, this switch will check outer tag first. So this switch will came to know that this is traffic of VLAN 1. This is not a traffic of VLAN 100. So this switch will not out this traffic from this interface. So guys, this is VLAN hopping exactly. So VLAN hopping is an attack where the attacker can send traffic from one VLAN to another VLAN. It is a method of attacking the network resources of the VLAN by sending packet to a port that is not accessible from an system. The main goal of this attack is to gain access to other VLAN on the same network, right? So you can mention this point as well. Otherwise, I have discussed what is VLAN hopping. Okay, so this is your 5 question based on VTP, right? VTP, or you can say based on VLAN. Okay, so that's all for today, guys. In next video we will discuss 5 more important questions. Till then, stay safe. Bye bye. That's all for today. If you like this video, please hit on like button. If you haven't subscribed my channel, please subscribe this channel. Thank you. Thanks for watching.